I call this meeting to order at 3:02 p.m. on January 24, 2024. The roll is taken by means of sign-in sheet. Mr. Secretary, do we have a quorum? Okay, we have a quorum. We have a few alternates today. So Charles Delzell for Scott Baldridge, Young Won Hee for Marcia Newcomer, Julie Rollins for Stan Barrera, and Michael Holt for Michael Russo. Oh, I apologize. So Nicolette Davis for Michael Russo. Thank you. Are there any other alternates whom I haven't called? Okay, wonderful. So introduction of guests, we have a number of them today. So we have President Tate, then Jackie Bach, Vice Provost of Academic Programs and Support Services, Craig Woolley, Chief Information Officer, Jennifer Baumgartner, Faculty Chair of CXC, and Todd Manuel, Vice President of Engagement, Civil Rights, and Title IX. There are no public comments registered for today's meeting. The minutes were circulated for our November 29th meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? Yep. So moved in the back. Who seconded? Okay. Are there any corrections or discussion about the minutes? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye. All those against, say nay. Abstentions? Okay, the minutes from our November 29th meeting are approved. Dear Senators, I hope you had a relaxing holiday despite the uncomfortably freezing temperatures last week. Since our last meeting, the Faculty Senate leadership was involved with several important initiatives. Engagement at LSU. As many of you are likely aware, on Friday, January 5th, LSU issued a broadcast email notifying the campus community of updates to the language surrounding diversity, equity, and inclusion, better known as DEI. Moving forward, LSU will focus on engagement rather than inclusion, and the message includes a number of principles by which it will be realized. Following the announcement, a number of faculty contacted me to express concern about the implication of this change for campus policies and the process by which the change was made, given that there was little to no faculty input. I relayed these concerns to President Tate, who invited faculty representatives to meet with him to discuss the matter. Consequently, at the direction of the Faculty Senate Executive Committee, on January 9th, Vice President Daniel Tyrone, Secretary Parampreet Singh, and I met with the president. It was a very productive meeting, touching on a number of related topics. On the question of process, we collectively identified ways in which faculty can be more involved in decisions of this nature. Moving forward, there will be monthly meetings between the president and faculty leadership. We also agreed that there should be more frequent communication between university leadership and the faculty on various matters, including those which may arise unexpectedly in the changing landscape of higher education. Much of the discussion also centered on the substantive impacts of the new focus on engagement. The prior Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, now part of the renamed Division of Engagement, Civil Rights, and Title IX, remains open and is committed to, quote, creating a vibrant and enriching university experience, ensuring that everyone has a chance to thrive and succeed, end quote. President Tate was also clear that nothing in the new policy will impact faculty teaching, research, or efforts at providing a more welcoming environment for all prospective students and employees. He also reaffirmed his commitment, which he has stated previously on multiple occasions, to defend tenure and academic freedom against any and all challenges which may arise. We understand that many questions still remain about what these changes will mean in practice. As a result, the FSEC voted to invite Todd Manuel to address the Faculty Senate today. He will be joined by President Tate to clarify the new terminology involving engagement and what it means for faculty, students, programs, and the newly rebranded Engagement, Civil Rights, and Title IX Office. A Q&A will follow the presentation. We on the executive committee remain committed to fostering a campus community that is inclusive and open to everyone. We know that words matter, and the message that the institution sends through its statements and policies greatly affect perceptions of many about whatever they are welcome at LSU, particularly in light of the ongoing discussions surrounding these issues across the country. Let us therefore be clear that we will continue to support our faculty and staff in their efforts to affect these positive changes, as we know the administration will as well. We also trust in the administration's stated commitment to academic freedom and are not aware of any directives to a faculty which would constrain their teaching or research. However, should you encounter such a situation now or in the future, do not hesitate to contact me. As an institution of higher education, we cannot fulfill our collective mission if our pursuit of truth and knowledge is in any way infringed upon. Faculty leadership will vigorously oppose any efforts intended to curb these abilities. Board of Supervisors meeting. On December 8th, Vice President Dan Terone and I traveled to LSU Health New Orleans, where I gave my report as chair of Council of Faculty Advisors. In my report, I summarized updates from our campuses around the state, as well as the importance of the new parental leave policy. We will continue to work with the administration to identify other ways of improving the welfare of faculty, especially concerning regular annual raises. To that end, we have asked the Budget and Planning Committee to review the university's budget and identify revenues that could serve as potential sources for faculty raises. I concluded my report by listing the recent research and achievements of our incredible faculty. Students' absence. In the past several months, the FSEC has received a considerable number of communications from faculty regarding students' attendance. A troublingly high number of students are consistently missing classes. To address this concern, last week, I met the undergraduate and graduate student leadership to discuss how we can identify factors impacting attendance. We each agreed that this is worthy of additional attention. We decided to jointly issue a survey that we hope will allow us to identify the issues surrounding this problem and how we can address it together. We are in the process of creating the survey, and I will keep you apprised of its developments. Of course, if you have any suggestions, please let me know. Proposed revision to laws governing retirement plan options. Last month, at its December 20th general meeting, the Staff Senate unanimously passed a resolution very similar to the one passed by the Faculty Senate in the fall, urging the Louisiana legislature and LSU leadership to work towards a revision of the clause that prevents state employees from changing retirement plans once enrolled. This was the first ever resolution jointly endorsed by both bodies. I have been informed by the President's office that the necessary notification has been submitted for public notice and that a retirement-related bill is being drafted and a legislator has agreed to file it. College policies. At our opening meeting of the academic year, I underscored the importance of college policy committees and their role in keeping policies up to date. Again, if you haven't done so already, I would advise you to familiarize yourself with your unit's policies, including its rules and bylaws. Now may also be an opportune time to review these policies to ensure that you're in compliance with them and to undertake updates as necessary. If you have any questions about bylaws or shared governance at LSU, please reach out to me and we will be happy to discuss them with you. We hope to continue strengthening faculty governance. Please continue keeping us informed about pressing matters and issues on campus. We are stronger together. This concludes my report. Are there any questions? Okay, our next item on the agenda is faculty survey on educational technology, and I'd like to invite Jackie Bach, Parampreet Singh, and Craig Woolley.
How do I advance the slide? Thank you. Good afternoon. I just want to give you a quick update on what we presented at our last meeting, and that is on the faculty educational technology survey. So just a quick recap on that initiative. This is a joint effort between many different bodies, Faculty Senate, their IT committee, our office, Craig's office, multiple offices are involved in this initiative. One of our purposes in doing this is, we had a survey 2 years ago, is to increase the number of participation by faculty who take the survey so we can make informed decisions based on that information. And then once again, to submit our findings to various stakeholders to support them in their decision-making process. So just a quick status. So after we met last, I sent out an email to ask faculty to submit questions for that survey. Thank you to all of those who sent in questions. They were really excellent. We then took those questions to those various committees listed in the first bullet and asked them for their input. Actually, it was Faculty Senate IT committee who suggested that we take these questions and divide them in these 5 different areas: learning management system, classroom hardware, educational software, faculty support for educational software, and then generative AI. So after we put together all those questions, we once again sent them out for review by these committees in order to put together a 30-question survey that will be sent out shortly. So just to give you a preview of some of the questions from that survey, I think that first question is the one that seemed to be of most importance, which is getting faculty's thoughts on our learning management system, which is currently Moodle. I wish Jim were here because we took his wording for this question. So if you don't like it, you can blame Jim at the next meeting. Some of the questions will ask you to specifically comment on your experience teaching in various classrooms on campus and what you think about what's in that classroom. And then finally, we have some sort of philosophical questions around AI that we're interested in getting faculty input on. So one of the things that was suggested here, I don't remember who brought this up, was, a follow-up focus group for those who might be interested in giving us more of an outlook or an opinion on educational technology. So that is one of the questions that faculty will be able to do, is submit their names if they want to be part of that focus group. Our plan is to launch the survey February 5th, give faculty 3 weeks to take it. We have targeted reminders that we've worked out as a group as to how we can incorporate or increase the number of participants. In March, we'll compile those results, hopefully get that to you at your March meeting, just so you can have a preview of what the findings are. And one of the ways that we had hoped to increase participation is by giving incentives to faculty who take the survey. And I'll talk about that in a moment. And then April, hopefully we'll be able to generate recommendations based on our survey. So this is the exciting part. Here are the incentives. So if you take the survey, you could be, how do I say this, Craig? It's not a raffle. You could transfer. You could be the recipient of your department's laptop. So we have 3 fine prizes, or whatever you call them, and then several small incentives for those of you who take the survey. And that's it. Do you guys want to add anything? Okay. I just want to thank everybody who participated in this. It was truly a collaborative effort, and I'm very pleased with the outcome. Thank you. Sorry, Param said I should ask if anybody has any questions. It is a busy week. All right, if you do and you don't want to ask them now, please feel free to reach out to either Craig, Param, or myself, and we'll answer them. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next presentation on quality enhancement plan will be introduced by Jane Cassidy, Senior Vice Provost, who will then Jennifer Baumgartner will follow her. So Jane.
Thank you. I think last September I came to the Faculty Senate meeting and reminded you that this year we are under SAC's reaffirmation. It's the year-long process that will culminate in April with an on-site visit. So this is a little bit of a status update, and then the QEP is a major part of that, and Jenny's going to let you know where that stands. So we submitted a compliance report that was 500 pages, had 1,200 plus pieces of evidence to SACs back in September. I think it was actually the 1st of September. This process goes first to an offsite review committee. There were, I think, 10 people who at the end of October and beginning of November reviewed our compliance report. I look at this kind of like when you submit an article for review, that you get some kind of anonymous feedback on your paper. So our process, we found out for the 74 standards that we had to comply with, that the offsite review committee said 15% of them were what they considered non-compliant at that point, which means they needed some revision. We looked at, they gave us very specific feedback, and I would say it was a really it's never great to have somebody tell you that you don't have enough or whatever, but it was really great feedback. And what we realized from it, that it was that our original report was very good. All they asked for primarily was additional information. So we had sent a number of degree audits. They wanted extra degree audits, one from every college. We sent job descriptions. They wanted more job descriptions. They had some faculty members. I don't know if you know, but we sent them a roster of every single faculty member that taught every single course during 22-23 academic year. And they looked at all of those and looked at whether faculty were credentialed, had the appropriate credentials to be teaching the class. They sent back, out of however many faculty we have over however many courses, they sent back questions on 20 of them. And all they really wanted was a little bit more explanation. All of our faculty are qualified to teach the classes, so we just needed to provide a little extra. So I say that to let you know we need to turn in now on February 5th what's called a focus report. We need to take those 11 standards that were not compliant. We need to give them the additional feedback that they want. And then the on-site committee will come in April 2, 3, and 4 for a visit, and can ask whatever questions they want at that point from that. So we feel really good about our preparations. We will find out what's specific to that site visit after I get a chance to talk to the vice president person who's coming to campus. I haven't been allowed to talk with that person yet. They have very strict protocols. But once I do, that person will tell us what the visit would look like, who they need to talk to, what additional documents, if any, that they need. And like I said, we feel really good. We didn't get any feedback that said, you don't do this well. We got feedback that said, oh, it looks like you follow all your rules, but we don't have enough evidence. And that's a really good place to be. So I'm taking that as a good sign, and we hope that we will have really great information and a good outcome for it. As part of the SAC's review, every institution has to have a quality enhancement plan. And that is something that the university chooses to invest time and energy in that will increase student success. Our university selected to enhance CXC because we have great data that it improves student success for the students who take that. And so there's a 100-page document that is going to be submitted on February 5th, proposing our QEP be Go Communicate. And Jenny Baumgartner is going to come and tell you a little bit about that.
Okay, good afternoon. How many of you seen all the decals and signage around campus, around Go Communicate? Okay, great. I hope if you start looking down at the floor, no, you need to look ahead, but there are some of those decals around. There'll be more for you to see. We just want to make sure that we have the opportunity, and thank you for letting me come today to share just a little bit about Go Communicate and what we're planning to do, just so you're informed about what's happening. Go Communicate is the brand for the QEP. We're looking at increasing access for students in terms of their CI courses. We know that they have been helpful for many students who've had access in the past. We know that many students do not currently have as much access as they would like to CI courses. And so we're looking at using this opportunity to do that. I think all of us as faculty know that a communication is an important part of what we do. Helping students be better communicators is a critical part of becoming a professional in whatever discipline that students have chosen. And so this is what we're working on in the next few years as a part of this, this quality enhancement plan. The goal is really to, regardless of major, increase access to communication intensive classes and learning support system services that go along with them that will help students be set up for success in developing their own communication skills in their disciplines and in their future professions, as well as their individual personal goals. So what we're hoping to do, I'm going to go through this really quickly. Obviously, there is a 100-page document with a lot of more detail, and I'm happy to talk about anything that you're specifically interested in. But we're working really heavily on in-person communication coaching, and on-demand resources will be provided to students so they have access to somebody to stand alongside them and help them through this process of building their individual communication skills, as well as individualized course development support for you as faculty who may be interested in teaching a CI course. We already have a fair number of opportunities for faculty development around CI teaching. We're going to increase those. There's going to be more asynchronous opportunities, more opportunities for single day or multi-day opportunities for learning about CI teaching, as well as more chances to recognize the wonderful work that our faculty do. So we're really taking this as an opportunity to expand what's happening, all the wonderful good things that are happening, and to also lean into the spaces that we know are not yet where they could be. This is just a snapshot of where we are currently, just so you know that there are a number of faculty currently engaged in CI teaching. We are reaching many, many students now. We would love to see this number and believe that this number will grow as a result of this QEP. I'm happy to take any questions that you might have at this time, but I think, yes.
Thank you, Lily, social work. Mostly in the honors college to do the communication. When we do all the groundwork and then the students take the class, is there anything that they have to do? I don't really get the process. Like, I don't want to drag it out, but if my class is C by C, whatever it is.
No, there's
Do I
nothing
even
additional
know?
a student needs to do once they're enrolled in the course, unless they're looking for additional, certification. So we do have some student recognition programs, which is a communication certificate, as well as a distinguished medal survey, medal that you may have heard about. But the students just in your course just need to take the course. We're interested.
I don't need to track them, or I don't even know who really follows it, if they even follow
We do.
through. But you do.
Yes,
Okay, good.
yes,
That's
yes.
great. Thank
Your
you.
CAC team takes care of that. And this will just increase our ability to do that outreach to students so that they can make the connection. We're very invested in helping students make the connection between what they're learning in the classroom and what they're going to be able to do when they leave LSU, and be able to communicate about all the skills and things that they've learned. So that is a goal. Yes. Hi.
Thank you for this presentation. I just have a very quick question. I was in charge of the assessment for the academic year 22-23 for the Spanish program. 4,600 students, more or less. And something I noticed was that the more we were certifying at the upper level, 2101, 2102, the more we were certifying courses, the lowest was the grade at the end. So my question was, how do you assess your own program? How do you assess the curriculum? Like, the faculty meet with the counselor, with the advisor at IC, goes over the curriculum, and then how do you assess your own program in terms of
So that
Sure,
would
and we
be-
can talk about the specifics of your discipline and your situation, which we can definitely speak to. If you, Anne-Marie, would you want to? I welcome Anne-Marie, Associate Director of CXC is here, and you may want to mic however, because I know she's worked directly with your team. Mike.
So ready. Thank you so much for asking this question, Carmela. And there's a couple of different things embedded in that, right? So the question about how CXC assesses our own programming efficacy, it's a sort of multi-point approach, right? We're looking at students' graduation rates, at their retention rates. We do have longitudinal work over a series of cohorts from the 2012, 2018 period, where we're seeing that students who take CI courses have a higher likelihood of graduating from LSU within a 4 to 6 year rate. So we do have that data. Ashley Clayton in Human Sciences and Education is our lead and analyst on that. So we have that as longitudinal data for success and retention. At the smaller level, like smaller scale level, we have a few program benchmarks where we're looking at how much support we're offering faculty for build around resources for their courses. I know that you and Melinda and Raphael have been having a lot of conversations around this bigger curriculum overhaul for those 1,000 and 2,000 level Spanish courses. So within that, the opportunity there is to figure out where there's some disconnects, right? Is it that the CI was the challenge for the grades? Was it that there was a misunderstanding about what was an add-on versus what was embedded? But what we do is make sure that when we're working with folks who want to certify, that we're actually taking a look at what the learning outcomes are at the course level. And I want to be honest, one of the advantages of the QEP right now is that we have historically been a very small unit. And I know that you have felt this, Carmela, right? Because you're so passionate about teaching. And we have fewer than half a dozen CXC team members who are serving between 300 and 350 faculty a year. So the number there is a little bit skewed in terms of the ability to spend a lot of time with each faculty member. The good news is that we've been able to move into a different model where we're able to expand some of our staffing, which means that more CXC team members are available to do that kind of customized work with our faculty. That's all rolled into one of our program assessment measures, which is detailed in the massive document that Jenny noted. But one of the ways we're assessing is how much in terms of resourcing are we actually making available for faculty who are interested in doing this and doing it well. And there's no campus-wide mandate. So if you're sitting in the room thinking, are they telling me I have to teach CI? The answer is no. There's no campus-wide mandate that everybody has to teach CI. We're into good teaching. We're not into mandating things for the sake of mandating things. So that's one of our program measures locally, is how much resourcing are we putting into exactly these kinds of questions. So we're making sure that you and the faculty who are teaching those courses really do feel like they're threading that needle as tightly as possible and teaching as best as they can for those students. So that was a long-winded answer, but I tried to pack in a lot.
Yes, and thank you for saying that. I was just getting ready to say, you will not hear from us that you have to certify your course. Please help us share that with faculty. We welcome everyone who's interested, and we're going to work with you to show you why it might be helpful for some of your courses. But this is not a mandate. This is just trying to increase access for students for a model that works.
May I
Yes.
follow up? This is something not related to that, but related to the teaching, how you are going to incorporate the AI component that we are experimenting right now. The
AI component.
yeah,
So we're working with faculty regarding how they would like to integrate AI into their communication intensive courses, but there's no one size fits all on that question for any of us.
Okay.
The
So-
short answer is with any kind of teaching approach and any kind of new technology or new
Okay.
emerging thing that's happening, we look at basic CI principles. We take a look at what faculty are interested in doing in those courses, and we brainstorm with them about ways they can implement what they think is valuable and important for them in their classroom.
Yeah, because something I noticed, particularly for languages, for the teaching of languages, that you have AI tool for writing, AI tool for speaking, AI tool for many things. So as we move forward as an institution, will you think about how we can certify courses in that direction? Because one of the things I noticed is that when they instructor certify courses, they can choose a couple of things, but they don't agree necessarily on those things, on that criteria. So it will be helpful if CI have something like teaching I see with artificial intelligence for writing, or artificial intelligence for speaking, or artificial intelligence for composition, or for creation, it doesn't matter. But if you clearly state something like that, then it helps, because it also helps us in terms of our assessment of, for those of us who are in charge of assessments, you have to think of, okay, we are doing this now, how do we translate this for assessment purposes?
I
How
have
do we
good news for
interpret?
you, Carmela.
We got stuff coming.
So again, among many opportunities that we have with the Go Communicate initiative, we have rolled out a set of rubrics that we're experimenting with that can help generate those kinds of questions. And I want to be candid, those of us in the room who've used rubrics know they're great sometimes and they're terrible sometimes. That's not some silver bullet for how we're each going to customize the work we're doing, but we are rolling out programming to instigate those conversations so that as faculty members, as teachers in spaces, we can get a little bit closer to figuring out what we think might be some good structures that we can share across classroom spaces. The other thing is, if you're currently a CI teacher, you're going to be getting an email about a CI teaching lab that's focusing particularly on the tech mode. If you're interested in certifying in the tech mode, or you're already certifying in a tech mode, you can come to that. Right now, we do have it limited to teachers who are teaching CI, simply because we're piloting the lab itself, and we want to kind of keep it in a group where we can have some good conversations. But I'm expecting that we'll be able to do more of that. And that tech mode lab won't just be about AI, but we would be not doing a very good job if we didn't include conversations about AI in there.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your questions. No, we're at time. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to myself or the team. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you. Okay, our last presentation of the day is with Todd, Manuel, and President Tate, who are here, and they will be speaking about the new terminology on campus on engagement. And please help me welcome Todd, Manuel, and President Tate.
Well, it's exciting to be here. I want to have a shout out to this group. You have a legitimate form of representation with your executive committee. They keep it 100. I've dealt with a lot of faculty senates over the course of my 30 plus years as a faculty member. This group rates at the top, largely because no matter what's happening, they'll just tell you point blank what they think. There's no hiding. There's no subtext. It's just direct conversation, advocating on your behalf, and actually attempting to be in partnership. A lot of times relationships are adversarial. I've never felt that with this group over the last 2 years, and I want to thank you all publicly. So I have a question for you all. It's a series of questions, actually. So imagine you're charged with the following. You're charged with increasing the 4-year graduation rate at LSU. You're charged with increasing the number of graduates who gain employment after they graduate. You're charged with increasing the number of applications and increasing the number of people who say yes when they're admitted. You're charged with increasing awareness and reputation of our undergraduate education programs. You're charged with providing greater social and marketable skills for every student who graduates. You're charged also, based upon information you see from survey data, with increasing satisfaction with your experience at LSU by both faculty, staff, and students. You're also charged, the hard charge, and I said faculty and staff, but I'm going to say it again for double purposes. You're in charge with increasing faculty and staff satisfaction based upon what you learn. So I said it twice because I need to say it 3 times. You're charged with increasing faculty and staff satisfaction. And you're charged with preparing the next generation of citizen scholars ready to be engaged leaders in their community. That's your charge. What would you do? This is a for real question. This is not symbolic. What would you do if you had those charges? Anybody have one thing they do? And it needs to be based upon the literature. Like, what do we know based upon evidence? What would you do if you had all of those charges? That's your job. What would you do? It's a hard charge, isn't it? I mean, increasing graduation rates, making sure faculty and staff are satisfied, making sure the reputation increases. All of those are your charges simultaneously. What would you do? Get money. What would you do? I like the empathy word. You know, I like that. That's on my webpage. Truth, empathy, and courage. Those are the three you have to have. So, anybody else want to give a go at it? Recognize the work of the faculty. I love that. Absolutely. Any others? Yes. Keep moving. Be positive, right? Keep moving. Listen. Be bold. Yes. Bam! That's what you would do. Because the literature says, in order for you to move all of those different pieces, the variable that comes up over and over, pull up your chat GPT and do it right now. You know, you all have to have a debate about AI, but you know, you need a quick survey. Treat it like Google. It will say engagement. It will say engagement over and over again. Now, the way it might say engagement might be different. Sometimes it might say community engagement. Sometimes it might say student engagement. Sometimes it will say faculty staff engagement. But that word engagement will always be there. Because fundamentally, people feel like they belong. And you can look at the neuroscience research. Where are my neuroscientists in the room? Any today? What does it say about belonging? Belonging is the most important variable that we really have. And how do you feel like you belong? You're engaged. Fundamentally. So if you were in my spot and you were doing a strategic plan, if engagement wasn't part of what you were doing, number one, you've fallen short of the mark on every single one of those questions. Engagement would have to be a serious part of it. Number two, all right? This body asked me some hard questions. Now, I think I should replicate some of those questions and answer them for you after my little talk about engagement and you answer the question. Some people have asked me, why have you changed the name of the office from inclusivity to engagement? Can you explain why and how these are related or different? Now, I've tried to ask some Socratic-like questions to get you to why it's important. But I do think it's important to talk about this shift in language. And I've always been 100 with you all. Like, I really try to be honest and frank. There's been quite a bit of national discussion about the language associated with inclusivity. And to pretend like it hasn't been politicized would be naive with a bunch of PhDs and JDs. It has been politicized. That language, to some, is unclear. To others, they just oppose it. To others, and if you read some of the newspaper accounts, it's literally been socialized in a negative form, and people are working diligently to keep that negativity associated with the language. Despite the fact that most people working in this have nothing but good intentions and want to help students move forward. All right. Now, since that exists, and since it's the goal of my administration in collaboration with all of you all to make sure that students are graduating and things are going well, we picked the word engagement to substitute for the word inclusivity. We believe that it is a word that we could define. The last time I met with you all, I said, you have to define your terms. If you do not define your terms, someone else will define them for you. So we defined ours quite clearly that focusing on engagement is critical to student learning, it's critical to persistence, it's critical to educational attainment in higher education, it's critical to faculty and staff satisfaction, it's critical that students who are engaged are more likely to study more, they're more likely to persist, they're more likely to actually be satisfied with their experience here. And that is ultimately our goal. So that's why we changed the name. Quite clearly, there are two things happening here, but we believe we're on the right track with that particular language. Now, a second question that this body asked me, which I think is really at the heart of why people might be concerned, is the university still committed to DEI? Right? Isn't that a fair question? Well, you all asked if fair or not. Now, I think we can speak to that directly. I can tell you we are definitely committed to a diverse student population, as well as faculty and staff, as well as people from different backgrounds, different perspectives, different worldviews. And we believe that's what enhances higher education. So there's your D. On the E, equity. I have stated to my colleague, Will Sutton, who interviewed me over the weekend, and I tried to give him a couple of examples. I'm going to give one for you. If you have an equity-related project and you've defined your project, let's say it's something we want to implement, not your research, but something we want to implement, and you learn that there are mechanisms associated with your equity project that have resulted in more people benefiting from higher education, maybe it's a subgroup, maybe it's women, maybe it's kids from rural communities. You've defined it any way you want to. You find the mechanisms that result in that subgroup performing better. That's a wonderful equity project. Here's what I told you in the last meeting. I can defend anything that's equal opportunity. So if you have a program that has worked with one subgroup, the mechanisms are well understood, and you open it up so others might benefit it, you have now entered into the world of equal opportunity, which, by the way, we still have an Office of Civil Rights and Title IX. We can defend that action anywhere in America. So it's perfectly fine to have a research project or an intervention that you might frame as equity, but at some point in that deal, and not, by the way, I believe nationally, this is where we've lost our way. At some point in that deal, you have to say everybody who wants to can benefit from this entity. We don't do that. If you notice, it never goes to the equal opportunity part of the deal. At least we haven't articulated it, and that's a shortcoming. So if I have a clinical trial, and I have it, and it's for women, and we learn some mechanism related to cancer, it may or may not be beneficial to men, but we ought to try. There ought to be a case study that lets us see whether it happens, and it can work. That's all I'm saying. So there's your E. Inclusivity, I've already defined for you. We're going with engagement. So we're committed to most of the ideas that are associated with DEI because fundamentally, we're committed to equal opportunity. That's it. Equal opportunity. So there's one of your questions. There's another question that seems to be looming in the air. The timing of the announcement and whether it has anything to do with any elected officials and whether they had any influence on anything you've done. Good question. Absolutely nothing to do with it. And I can say with certitude that no elected official or their surrogate, because they often work with surrogates, has contacted me about anything related to this office or anything related to our strategic plan or anything related to the change in name. I have not heard from them. I have not heard from them before this, and I have not heard from them after this. Because largely the change was a function of our strategic planning effort. Now, I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge that our office has watched carefully some of the cases that have unfolded, including the Supreme Court case on affirmative action. We most certainly have paid attention to the ripple effects that have happened to campuses across the country. We're keenly aware of it. It would be negligent of a president of a university today not to do so and to have his or her staff engage in the same kind of way. I think it's important, first of all, to lay out a bit of a timeline around this word engagement. Part of the reason we hired Todd, who's going to talk to you later, is because during his interview, he talked about and focused on the importance of engagement. We then in our systemic review of our institution and our planning process, found that engagement was a shortcoming and something we needed to be more readily making transparent in what we do. We also followed the data. We had a survey in May of 2023 that looked at employment engagement. We also launched another survey in September that looked at engagement with our alumni. That's just in the Baton Rouge campus. That's not including the other things that I'm responsible for. There was another survey down at LSU Health Science, New Orleans, all pointing to engagement being extremely important. This has nothing to do with politics from the perspective of somebody called me and told me to do something. It just didn't happen, all right? So 2 things I want to make clear. We shifted to engagement in Todd and Manuel's department because it was just important to rename it and make it clear that we were going to put resources behind it in the strategic plan. That's what you tend to do in strategic plans. You name what you're going to fund. And so we want to make sure we're funding it. Somebody talked about recognizing faculty. We recognize students and staff who are part of engagement. And we think it's something we really want to get behind. We will continue to support the great work in our civil rights component of Todd's office and the Title IX component. It fundamentally deals with the anti-discrimination laws of this country. I believe from perspective of epidemiologists, by going with engagement, we are now dealing with the prevention side of some of the problems. The Todd's shop will also deal with the need to intervene should anti-discrimination acts happen on our campus. So we're dealing with prevention and intervention. That's the best way you should operate in a leadership function. Some asked me, you replaced the DEI statement on the website or my website that, was president's website. Yes, I did. I substituted it for what I thought we could legally and really responsibly talk about. And I think that is where I stand with it. Some of you might ask, what do we have to do with our language? All I would say to you is that just review your language, make sure it's legally defensible, and move on. Your life remains the same. I want to double down on a couple of things that I said to you the last time. People asked me about their individual research. Your individual research has nothing to do with the name change on the president, an officer reports to the president. Your individual research is covered by academic freedom. Academic freedom is a pillar and principle in which I told you I would end my career for, and I mean it. Secondly, you have a constitutional right to free speech. That's over and above anything we do traditionally in higher education, so you are free to speak any way you deem appropriate. That's part of what the civil rights entity protects on our campus. And finally, if you have a program that you're worried about or you wonder if you could actually do it, I think you should talk to the general counsel's office. I think you should talk to Todd and say, is this program legally defensible in light of what happened in some of the law cases that unfolded? If it's deemed legally defensible, keep rolling. If it's not, then like you all do, it's probably a linguistic twist and you need to change some language and maybe a few principles and you'll be able to keep going. Now, I've stated all I can about engagements. There's someone far more expert than me, and that would be Todd Manuel. I'm going to turn it over to him and allow him to talk about his journey with that particular one. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good afternoon. Thank you all for having me. So I'm really pleased to have the opportunity to speak with you about this concept of engagement, because I really believe that it's a continuation of a conversation that we started a very, very long time ago. As the president mentioned, we started this conversation around engagement when I actually was on campus interviewing here for this role. And just to provide you with a little context in terms of the work that we've been doing to just further this conversation along, back in June of 2022, when I arrived here on campus, everyone wanted to know, well, what's going to be your area of focus? What is your team going to do to actually help move the needle for our faculty, our students, our staff, for our alums? And one of the things that I talked about was this concept of engagement. And the reason why I talked about this concept of engagement was because I really thought that was the key to helping LSU move forward in terms of ways that it could actually achieve the objectives that we're here to achieve. And so what we talked about was driving engagement for the entirety of the LSU community, for our faculty, our staff, our students, the community in which we operate, not just here in Baton Rouge, but across the state of Louisiana. And then we talked about what's the opportunity to actually remove barriers that prevent people from engaging. And when we talk about engagement, what we're really meaning is active participation in all that LSU has to offer. That is what we're talking about. And so the goal is to thoughtfully engage folks, meet them where they are, thoughtfully engage them, and ensure that we have 100% active participation, as close as we can get to that 100% active participation across our campus community. And so that began the conversation in June of 2022. And from that point forward, we continue to cascade that conversation out. I had that conversation with some of you in this room. I've had that conversation with faculty. I've had that conversation with alums and other people in the Baton Rouge community and even other parts of our state around this concept of engagement and active participation in what LSU has to offer. To take it a little bit further, fast forward to July of 2023, as the president mentioned, we continue to do this work. And one of the areas that we decided to focus on, the president came to a few members of the cabinet and he presented us with a unique question. And it was, if we thought about student success, how would we really put jet fuel in that and really make it go in a way that really serves LSU well? And so those of us that were assembled around the table, there were members from academic affairs, from student affairs, from enrollment management, from my office. As we pondered that question, we thought about, what does student success really mean? And what we thought about was, it really means having a high level of engagement when you really think about the students that we're here to serve. And so we began a process of looking into this concept of student success and what that means and how we measure it and what we look at across campus. And what we did was we went about a process. One of my good friends in the room, Dr. Keenan Arbonat, was really, really helpful to us in helping us to develop a survey instrument where it was disseminated to all academic units on campus. It was disseminated to all administrative units on campus. And we really got to get some insights in terms of all the many things that were happening on campus that really supported overall student success. And what we saw was that there are probably more than about 400 things that were happening across various units on campus that really, really went towards student success. And so we took that information and we looked at that information. We looked at where it was happening. We looked at the resources that were being provided to it. We looked at some of the potential outcomes and how we might continue to think about that work as we move forward. One of the other things that happened, as President Tate mentioned, was that there was also some work that was being done around faculty and staff engagement as well. And so that was another body of work that took place where there was a faculty and staff engagement survey that went out, and we really wanted to capture and get some ideas around what does it mean to be an employee on this campus and actually be highly engaged. And so that survey went out, the results came back, and now we have some information on what that looks like for our faculty and staff. And so that's the timeline against which we've been working as we think about this issue of engagement and what it potentially means for LSU. So the question now comes out, I'll address 3 points for you. What does that mean for the newly branded Division of Engagement, Civil Rights and Title IX? What does it mean for faculty? And then what does it mean for programs that exist here on campus? So for the Division of Engagement, Civil Rights and Title IX, what that means is we have taken steps to redefine how we move about connecting with students, with faculty and staff. When you look at students that are on campus, what we've done is we framed up a new office of engagement and impact, and we have teams there that will focus on overall student engagement and impact, as well as institutional engagement. On the student side, what we're looking at areas such as leadership development, career readiness and workforce development, first year experience, health, safety, and wellness. Those were things that came out in some of the survey instruments that we sent out that really gave us some insights around some of the things that were happening, not only on campus, but areas that we know will support overall student success. And so the goal is that by focusing in these key areas, we know that we have the best opportunity to really set students up for success and really have a high level of engagement around the things that really matter for students on this campus. And so that is the student engagement side of the house. The institutional engagement and partnership side of the house, that team will be focused on working with everyone in this room, working across the campus community and making sure that we're establishing relationships and partnerships that matter for everyone in this office, in this room, and helping to move forward those things that will help us all be successful, regardless of whether you're a student, you're a faculty member, whether or not you're an alum, or whether or not you're a community member who's looking to partner with LSU as well. And so that work will continue to happen. The Civil Rights and Title IX work will continue to happen as it has always happened. There's been an incredible amount of resources that have been poured into the office to ensure that we're doing all the things that we need to do to be compliant, but not just be compliant, to be proactive in terms of meeting the needs of students, faculty, and staff on this campus. And so we're really excited about the way in which we constructed the office and the work that lies ahead for us. So what does that mean for, what does engagement look like for our faculty? As I mentioned, we really think that a high level of engagement as it relates to our faculty, our students, our staff, that it really sets us up for success. So from my point of view, the point of view of our team and others, having a high level of engagement from faculty is going to be critical to our success. As I mentioned, we've taken some steps to conduct an employee engagement survey, and we've learned some things from that. And so now the opportunity exists for us to really, really partner with faculty and really dig into some of that information and figure out where we go from here. That is an opportunity for us to partner, to work together. And so you all have provided information and insights by participating in that survey. And so now that we have that information back, there's an opportunity for us to look at two things. One, there's an opportunity for us to look at some of the areas where we may have gaps or challenges and figure out ways together that we can tackle some of those challenges. But then there's also an opportunity for us to look at some of the areas where we're really, really doing well. And so if there are places where we are really doing well and we're excelling, what's the opportunity to scale that, to share best practices across departments, but not only across departments, even our partners across in other parts of the state on other campuses. And so that's something that we're looking very closely at. What does it mean for programs that exist on campus currently? As the president mentioned, we do not have a legislative mandate. We do not have an executive order that's in place. There's been nothing that has come down that has impacted any of the things that happen on LSU's campus right now. And so for us, there's a lot of great work that is happening on campus right now. And so the goal would be to continue to further that work and continue doing the great work that you're doing. If there are any questions that you have about how you might continue to do that work, our office is here and we're standing ready, willing, and able to partner with you and figure out exactly how you might continue to cascade that work as we move forward. If there are any things that come down, and as the president mentioned, we're keeping our eye on things that happen not only in the state, but things that happen outside of the state as well. And if there are things that arise from a legislative standpoint, we'll be addressing those issues, looking at them, and assessing how they might impact LSU as we move forward. But that's basically the work that we've been doing as it relates to this concept of engagement and how we're thinking about the work as we move forward. Yeah, sure.
Hi, my name is Nicolette Davis and I'm a librarian. My question is, what is the definition that you all have for engagement? Because I'm hearing the what, the when, the why, but I feel like I'm missing the who. And I think that's what the inclusivity part is includes for me is the who and the communities that we are engaging. So could you give me the definition of what LSU's definition of engagement is at this point?
The definition of engagement is very simple. It's active participation. If you really want to boil it down, it's active participation. It doesn't matter whether you're a student, a faculty member, a staff member, whether you're an alum or a member of the community, it's active participation. In order to move LSU forward, we have to have people actively participating in what we do.
I have another question too. In regards to like our DEI committees, like we have a faculty senate DEI committee, will those names change or will those still stay the same?
We have not asked anyone to go off and change names. So there's been some discussion about the changing of names, the renaming of things. As we mentioned, the office, the Division of Inclusion, Civil Rights and Title IX, the name change there was to help people understand where we're focusing our efforts. This idea of engagement is incredibly important as we move forward. If there are thoughts that people may have around the need to change things that may exist in their respective spaces, we welcome those conversations, and to the extent that they believe that they might create better alignment between what you may be doing and what's happening in the main office.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think my question was prompted by President Tate's remarks more, but I appreciate that you addressed what prompted this particular change, and that it did not come from any direction from the governor, from Governor Landry, or a change in administration. So that suggests to me that this was a pretty thoughtful and considerate decision that you all undertook to make this change. I'm struck by the irony that this move to engagement happened without any engagement, and I think that it's rather striking that you all are using this word to describe some change that is an implicit rejection of the existing strategic plan, which, you know, on page 4 of it talks about diversity, equity, and inclusion. It does feel a little bit euphemistic that you're talking about engagement in this way, bordering on a kind of double speak. And I share my colleague's question about what you mean by engagement, to say that it is just active participation. I know the president likes evidence and journal articles. Well, you know, I've written on public participation and public engagement, and I can tell you that active engagement is a very weak definition of engagement. Not only that, but the idea that a survey was used to get our feedback is another incredibly weak structure. of engagement, and I'm really concerned about what the implications of this change are going to be. I would love to have more engagement, but based upon this actual creation, it doesn't seem like that's a real sentiment of what's going on here.
I like that question. Actually, comment.
More of a comment, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So let's talk about process, because a big part of your commentary was about the engagement process. Oh, the engagement process. And let me first go back to the strategic plan, which is as dead as a doorknob when I walk through the door. So let's talk about strategic planning first. Strategic plans are done for capital campaigns. Y'all do know that, right? Who doesn't know that? Like, if you don't know that, I'm gonna tell y'all. Strategic plans are done for capital campaigns. They're written so that you can go out and engage a set of individuals who will appropriate and or give you money. So when I walked in the door, we had a strategic plan that was alive. The plan died when we raised, I don't know how many tens of millions of dollars to complete the capital campaign. The capital campaign was completed with a record appropriation and a record set of investments by private entities. That killed the capital campaign, and we literally said the capital campaign is over. At that point, we also were in the middle of a strategic planning process, which included, I don't know, is there anybody in the room who was a part of that? I'm not sure. There were scores of people who participated in the strategic planning process. How many hundreds? 200 people engaged in strategic planning for the university. So the survey is an outgrowth of those 200 people selected to contribute to the strategy going forward. You can't have everybody in it. You have representatives. So we had representatives in it. One of the things we learned was that engagement was important. Then we followed up, because sometimes you don't believe, you triangulate information. We did a survey after a focus group of 200 to go out into the broader community to better understand. All of y'all could get through peer review with that. Don't lie to me. Focus group, survey, published. So, point of fact, it was more than just an announcement. There was a process that went into it, that informed it. And frankly, the word engagement, the reason we picked it is because exactly your comment. We need to be better. It was really clear to us we needed to be better. In my last meeting with this body, I agreed to meet more regularly, did I not? I said, we have to be better. I just talked to the provost earlier today, said the same thing to him. We have to be better at this. So you and I are on the same page, but I just disagree on the process that we got, how we got to that word. And I agree we need to be better engaged. I think it's the fundamental difference between a world-class research university and one that's just average. Because you can feel the culture at a world-class university. You can feel the engagement around research, around scholarship. It's alive. Like I know, because I was at a couple. And I want the same thing here at scale, because we can do it. And so that's what I'm committed to. Whether it was weak or strong in your mind, we got to be better. That's it. Like, it's not good enough right now for me. And so I'm deeply committed to it. It's not a weak, tertiary kind of language we're using. It's a deep-seated commitment to be further engaged, to be better partners, to turn over what I think is an amazing set of activities that happen here in a focused way, so that people will understand, as I ask those questions, the markers of excellence that exist at LSU.
Thank you. My name is Dr. Molly Redfield, and sorry, back here. And I think unfortunately, I guess like my colleagues, this may not be a question, but I think it's important to name. So my background is I'm a professor in the School of Music, specifically jazz studies. I'm the first female in my area, even though my area has existed for over 20 years. And the newest research on female full-time assistant professor or higher jazz faculty is 3% in the nation. I say all of this because without the word inclusivity, the idea that we're giving equal access and opportunities to people who are from marginalized groups, I would not be here. That research wouldn't have been funded. And including, I have to thank him because he's in the room, the provost granted me a grant this year that I was able to write because I could say this was something the university has made a flagship. This is a program that supports this want. And I was very fortunate to receive that grant and a matching grant. My only fear is that with removal of these words, is that people who come from an area like mine, which doesn't receive a lot of funding because it's the arts, that if without this, that it could set a trajectory where there might not be funding available because I can't point to my institution has it in their mission. My institution has it in their, all of these different things. And although I could say it's engagement, my goal is to follow the current research, which is how can I include female identifying students, non-binary identifying students, and students who are transgender, those who do not get all of the programs always designed for them. So instead, I'd have to have my language adjusted to where it's everybody gets access. So my only concern, again, is that I am a little concerned with what we would signal in terms of getting funding for projects like mine, which nationally has been recognized as important and needed and follows research of many years. But then also, you know, if unfortunately, if we did, you know, have a change in president, what if that president doesn't change it either, but doesn't have this knowledge that we had here? So I just wanted to put that out as a fear. I wanted to articulate it because I am an example of the success of it.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that comment. And I'll just respond to that by saying this. I think we sometimes get caught up on words in a lot of ways. And this conversation that has been happening for quite some time around the words diversity, equity, inclusion, it has taken many different forms over many, many different years. To your point about use of the word inclusion versus engagement, I'll tell you, I'll make it personal for me, just like it's personal for you. So in the early 90s, I was a student, I was a freshman on this campus, and I was in my second semester here at LSU. And I get back to my apartment that afternoon after attending class, and there's a message. At that time, we still had answering services, and so there's a message on my call box, and so I listened to the message, and my military unit is being activated for Desert Storm. I'm in my second semester. I'm an African-American male. The numbers on this campus did not look anywhere like what they look today. And so I packed my stuff up and I have to leave school. I had many friends who had the very same experience where they packed up their things and they moved away to do their military service and they never made their way back to a college campus. That was it for them. That was not my experience. I was able to return to LSU in large part because of the engagement that I had with my professors at the time. Every single one of my professors had a relationship with me. And in each one of those instances, I had conversations with every single one of them before I left campus. They made it possible for me to complete the semester in the middle of the semester. They made it possible for me to return to LSU and complete my degree. And that's part of the reason why I'm standing here today. And so the idea of engagement, it really does matter. It really does matter. And if I had to sit down and write a grant proposal or write another proposal around something else that we're trying to get done here on campus, it would be to talk about the real life experiences and the ways in which we really help people thrive and succeed here, and not necessarily just around the words or definitions that we place around some of those words. But that is my personal experience.
Thank you. I am Rosemary Peters Hill from the Department of French Studies. And I think I agree with you that we focus too much on words. However, I think the comments and questions that I have been hearing, the way I've been hearing them, suggest that words hold people and institutions accountable, right? So without diversity, equity, and inclusion as part of our mission or plan for the university, specifically part of that mission and plan, LSU has removed a set of checks and balances that have helped us make progress toward getting greater racial, ethnic, gender, and non-binary people of color diversity on campus and getting greater equity for them. And I just, because I researched, I looked up some numbers from 2022, okay, updated July 21st. Oh, pardon me, 2023. And I couldn't find all of the numbers because I'm on my phone and it's tiny and I'm in here too fast. But as of July 21st, 2023, we have 688 male faculty, 515 female, for a total of 1,203, right? Okay. Those are the white faculty. Okay. People of color, all lumped together, constitute 578. Well, I think if you look at 1,203 versus 578, we're talking about maybe 30% versus 70. That's not equity. There is no mention of gender identity, of disability or ability or exceptionality. We certainly have faculty with non-binary gender identities, with transgender identities. We certainly have faculty with disabilities, okay? And they are not included. That is not inclusion, okay? And as for diversity, I think all you have to do is look around campus, look in my classroom. I have 13 white students and 1 Black student in my class. And I don't want to make generalizations for all of the humanities, but it seems to me that that is what I see looking around campus as well. So that is not diversity. So I would like to make the suggestion, I guess, President Tate, perhaps your website is already fixed, but since websites can be edited, maybe we add in engagement at the end of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Instead of DEI, which sounds kind of like a traffic offense, like could be DEIE. Thank you.
I think I might be next. Thanks. What's our plan of offense to survive, knowing that this is a national reality of anti-woke perspective, of the virus, of the indoctrination of liberal ideas, it feels like McCarthyism all over again. I know I'm not even supposed to say that out loud, which is also a concern because this is a place where our ideas are revered and supported. But what's our plan of offense for people who do feel vulnerable not supported, need to keep quiet. I'll remove language, I'll change language, but I'm a warrior for social justice as I ascribe to as in my profession, and that comes first. So I know I have I intersperse my opinion and thoughts, but what is our plan, our offensive plan? What do we just lay low? Do we, like, I'm an idealist. I believe I can play with people across the aisle. I really do. I don't feel like people are going after particular people, but I know that can happen. What do we do? What would you tell faculty who really, we have a great leader, great director, not, we're cohesive. I don't want to be defunded as a university, but what do? Do we just take it? I mean, there's, 100, 500 current articles about this right now. What's our plan of offense? It's very, very vague language, and you're good at that, but you're also a direct person. And I'm not hearing any direction. I'm hearing now we just talk about engagement and we go forward, but grants are going to not fund us. Students aren't going to want to come. And it's not LSU. I realize this is not LSU. So we'd be naive to think this is LSU. It's not. It's far bigger than LSU. It started with affirmative action with the Supreme Court. We're aware. Anybody who knows, and we're smart people in this room. We know we change. And anyway, so that I'm a justice seeker, and I want to seek justice. And this is a big conversation.
2 points. First, on the last comment, I never leave a room where people talk about our diversification activities without some factual spin on it. If you look at LSU today, Todd was here in what year? Early 90s. And if you look at LSU today has more African-American undergraduates than any other flagship university in the United States of America. I want you to just marinate with me on that one moment. I'm a graduate of the University of Maryland. We were #1 for many years. Maryland, with PG County in its concentration of Blacks, is now #2 to LSU. So you and I need to work on getting more African-American students in your French class, because I made my daughter take French. And so I think we need to fight a good fight, because distribution is uneven when people come in and experience our institution. That is why they need to be engaged, because they would understand that in a state like Louisiana, the study of French would be extremely powerful. Now, I'm not minimizing anything else you said. I just want to clarify for the record. Now, as to yes. We've never do enough, but now we're talking, as my colleague talked about. So what do you do in the face of what we, for example, read? If you did read the New York Times, what do you do in the face of that kind of engagement, right? Because that's a political engagement. It's a broader set of actors attempting to influence more broadly what happens in state capitals, what happens in terms of how people come to understand the world around them. Well, a university is a place that must pursue the truth. And foundationally, my colleague was talking about her research in music and not wanting to, not lose her funding and the like, and because we don't use certain words. I think, point of fact, we are at a point in our society where people do want the truth. And they do want to understand how the world is being influenced. And there is nobody stronger or better prepared to teach and to actually discover those realities than the people sitting in this room. And if you don't believe today that your research is foundational to this democracy, you aren't reading the New York Times, because it is foundational to actually bringing the truth to bear. And there are only a few organizations left that have that as a charge. One is the university, the other are our colleagues in journalism. And I'm not sure there's anything else. Everybody else is attempting to influence, and the truth doesn't necessarily have to be articulated. This is our foundational job, to display the truth. So you want to fight? Do great research that articulates what's happening in the world around us. I mean, that is what this is about. Why do you think we're why are we all here? Maybe you all just like physics or chemistry or whatever. Some of us in the social sciences, we do it for other reasons. There is a project around the truth that is extremely important. And I think that's the deal. That's the fight. You know, and I think we have to guard our academic freedom, and we have to guard our First Amendment rights so that you can engage in the pursuit of the truth with courage, and someone said earlier, with empathy. It's extremely important. That's what this project is about. That's what LSU foundationally is. It doesn't matter who's president, that project doesn't change.
Hello? This one's good.
Momentum. So I'll go again. Hello. I just want to go back. I really appreciate this discussion. I think there's room for improvement. That's what we're all here for. But if you can elaborate on something that you said, just to be clear, because what I try to do, at least if I want to put my hat on research, is change perceptions and not think that everything is set in stone and we cannot adapt. And something that you said caught my attention about the strategic planning, that is said there for specific reasons. And perhaps I misheard. So that's why I would like you to clarify that as soon as that campaign was done, that was closed, and now a strategic plan is again in place with the word engagement as the driving force behind it? Or should I just disentangle those two? Because I'm pretty sure when you run campaigns, one is like the Farm Bill. Before it ends, you have to start the new one. And when you start the discussion, as soon as it passes. So if you can elaborate a little bit, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
I'm not sure I understand the question, to be honest. I really don't understand the question.
Where's the new strategic plan? Like,
oh yes,
is it
when is it coming out? Oh yes, so the first plan that will come out will be the system plan, and that'll more than likely be released at around the February board meeting. And then the next part of the plan will be the Baton Rouge component, and then each one of the campuses in LSU system will release their own version that builds off the system. So engagement is a pillar of the system-wide strategic plan. Yes, I'm sorry, I didn't, that's exactly right. It's one of the pillars.
Well, thank you. Thank you to colleagues also for a lot of interesting comments. I'm coming from a totally different viewpoint on it. Is that we serve on a lot of search committees. Prior to these changes on the search committees, we used to have DEI statement, not only on the grants, but also on the applications and things like that. We sort of had some idea on how to evaluate, let's say, a leadership position based upon their DEI visions, how they're going to do it. There were some measurable items, how things or somebody has actually improved the diversity in their previous role, or how they have actually improved inclusion in their previous role. Do you have pointers on how do you actually measure vision for engagement? Let's
I
say,
gave
yeah,
you on my metrics,
yeah,
but
sure.
I would question yours.
Yes.
So I was hoping somebody said this. I wasn't going to say anything about this, but I'm so glad you brought this up.
Sure.
So if in the case of employment, you really need to make sure what you're doing is legally defensible.
Mhm.
So I was not going to talk about employment today, but you did bring it up. And I would be remiss if I did not say, because I understand the origin of a lot of that goes back to a reporting framework that was put in place by Todd's predecessor, which none of us have ever gotten a report on. We have no record of any of them ever, any of this information ever being reported to his office or to my office. And these tools that are being used were supposed to be metrics that used to be when I was a faculty member a long time ago. We had it was like the equal opportunity officer on the search committee, and they had a series of questions you had to answer. I don't know how this world has evolved and what part of it is legal and what part of it is not. And I believe in part when I said to our university council, and then I came back to this body as well and said, make sure what you're doing is actually compliant with the law, because you're going to find yourself, like I said, I don't want anything to be done that's inconsistent with civil rights and anti-discrimination law. Everything needs to line up. And if it does, you're good. If it doesn't, then you need to take a look at the practice. And this is the deal when you have evolving litigation in court cases that begin to play in and weigh on how you govern. And I think that's the important part. And I'm glad you asked the question. It wasn't going to be one I was going to talk about, but I think it's a very important one for every particular unit to look at and make sure what they're doing is compliant with the law.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Oh, well, I do want to say something
Sure.
about grants, because
Sure.
I spend my life getting grants. There is nothing that we have done that would preclude you from getting a competitive grant from the National Science Foundation, NIH, Ford Foundation, Spencer Foundation, you name it. It is a wordsmith game. 100%. Do you add value as an individual, and what you propose, does it line up with what they're asking for? That has always been the way it's been. I see nothing that would get in the way of that. Even in states where they pass laws, for example, in Florida, they did not preclude that kind of write-up in grant applications for federal dollars. And so I think that you are perfectly safe to write up grant proposals in ways that you think best articulate your vision for the work you want to do. And 100%, there's not going to be anybody looking at your grant proposals to say, oh, you can't do that. It's between you and the granting agency, and you have academic freedom. Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying that at the end of your addressing, because I feel like the discussion is bringing into question the legal aspects of things, while the engagement title is a very nice title, and I feel called for the engagement word. When it comes to grants, proposals, and things like that, we many times are asked to submit a statement on equity, inclusion, etc. And from what you just said, it remains clear to me that as long as this is requested by law, the university stands by it. But as a movement or publicity, or if we want something to unite us to work in the next 5 years together on, that word should be engagement.
Well, I wouldn't want to dictate your freedom in that way. What I was really speaking to is employment law. So there's distinctions in all of this, and that's where it gets complicated. So in employment law, decisions to hire someone or not have very clear frameworks on what you can do. But you as a faculty member writing a grant to NSF, let's say, or the NIH, you're literally writing your grant to that particular call. And I think that's all the academic freedom in the world allows you to write it any way you want. The only thing that might be impactful on the grant is if it said you can hire these kind of people. But that would be illegal. You see, that's all I'm saying. So in employment law, you just have to be very careful and, you know, talk to general counsel's office, make sure when decisions around hiring and things of that sort, that you don't have tools in place that you thought were being asked for by us, but aren't, and might be illegal. But on grants, you're certainly free to be your intellectual playfulness should manifest itself. Yes, sir.
We have been asked to report on our pool and our interview diversity, equity, and inclusion characteristics. Are you telling me that data has not been reaching that office?
I have been here 2.5 years. And I have never received a report. He has never received a report related to any of the information you're describing. I think that process was put in place in another administration. I'm not sure if they were getting reports or not, but we have never seen anything related to your hiring patterns. I only learned of it actually in talking with my colleagues here when we met in preparation for this meeting. I didn't know that you all were doing that. Now, it may be that individual deans have their own strategy and plans related to this, and I don't want to speak for them. They are free to lead as they deem appropriate. But I'm just saying, if the impetus for this was from the president's office, we haven't gotten a thing, and I have no idea. The only thing I know is what was read earlier from my colleague in French. At the end of the year, we get a report that Dr. Arbuthnot and her team put up on who gets hired and what their demographics are. That's all I really know. I don't know who your pools are. We don't have any of that. We never had in my 2.5 years. Completely tabula rasa for me. I didn't even know it was happening.
That's disappointing. I mean, but
that's why you have to have conversations. I learned more in our 2-hour conversations about what was happening on the ground here at LSU. When did we meet? In January? I can't remember. Early January.
Like 2 weeks ago.
I learned more
January
that
9th.
day. We were supposed to meet for 30 minutes. I think we met for 2.5
2
hours.
hours.
Than I had in 2.5 years. I literally did not know some of the things because they were being ascribed to our office and I had no idea. It's like, have we gotten a report? I haven't gotten a report. Where's that report going? I didn't know.
What might mitigate that would be engagement, right? Like, so
it's all got to be better.
2.5 years. Yeah, there's some improvement to be done.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, and by the way, I don't mind getting that data, but we're not requiring it.
Maybe the last question. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you for taking time to answer all these questions. So this is a little bit nitty gritty, but when you said NIH grants, I start thinking, okay, so say in my grant, I say I'm going to specifically seek out students of color to boost minority exposure to sciences, and I'm going to pay them. Am I in a legally defensible range there in my hiring of students? Is that something I need to talk to general counsel about?
Well, general counsel is here, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. If you say that was as an aspiration in your grant to increase the number of students of color who participate in science as a part of an NIH grant, but everyone has equal opportunity to apply, you just want to do this as an aspiration, I believe that's still legally defensible. Correct me if I'm wrong, general counsel. I'm doing pretty good. I'm practicing law without a license. But that was my whole point about this tension. And I want to be clear about something. In the world we're living in, the equity and equality words, they're all been made to be bad. So what you described is an equity strategy, but still has a deeply rooted equal opportunity framework. And that's why it's legally defensible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for being here. I really
No, I
appreciate
appreciate
the
you all.
clarification.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Well, our next meeting is on February 20th. Is there a motion to adjourn? Second, okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you. See you next month.